Hi, and welcome to Ask Me Anything. I have an interesting topic that I want to talk to you about, and it seems like it's really relevant right now. And the topic is around how do we empower ourselves in our own lives to do, be, and have exactly what it is that we want. I was working with a client yesterday, and then the day before with somebody else. And what I realized is that there's a pattern of disempowerment that we take on in certain areas of our lives. Like we might feel disempowered in our career, or we might feel disempowered in our partnerships, or we might be disempowered in our friendships. Disempowerment comes from us not being able to stand for, to be who we want to be, to say what we want to say, and to do the things that we know we want to do. Now, what impacts our disempowerment? Because this is what I was working with a couple of my clients around. They felt very disempowered. One was around career, and it had to do with somebody within their career structure that said something to them about something that happened 4 years ago. And that drove my client to really sort of give herself up, give what she stood for up, and believe whatever this other person was saying. Another example that I had was somebody that disempowered themselves in their relationship. They couldn't speak into what they needed, what they wanted, or what they desired because they had a fear of the person leaving them. Most of the time, when we're disempowered, it happens because we take a step back and say that we're not going to share, express, relate something that's important to us. Now, where does disempowerment come from? Because we are born into this world as these really bright beings that know that they can have everything that they want, that they can have everything that they desire. That's how we incarnate into this life. And then over time, through the process of our lives, we are told different things. We have different experiences. So as a toddler, we might be told, don't touch this, don't do that, don't climb that. It might not be safe. And so what happens is maybe our parents or our babysitter or whoever is around us is telling us not to do something because they believe they're keeping us safe. But really what begins to happen is this is the first step to disempowerment. And then in our teen years, we're told to look or act or dress a certain way so that we fit in. So a lot of times in the teenage years, we lose our sense of ourselves because we're trying to fit into whatever it is at that period of time, whatever is current, whatever is expected of a teenager. And then I can go into our 20s. When we go into our 20s, you're trying to establish yourself, maybe create a career, do really well within the job that you have. And so you believe what people are saying about you and that you're trying to please someone or trying to prove something to somebody. Maybe your boss, maybe your boss's boss. But when we go to try to please and try to prove, a lot of times, again, we give ourselves up because we're trying to be something that somebody else wants us to be. And I can go on. This pattern follows us through our lives. Now, the good news is that if you're in your 40s, usually in your 40s, 50s is when you've had enough life experience that you begin to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this anymore. You know what? No, I'm not going to act this way anymore. You know what? I'm not going to believe this about myself anymore. So we begin to reclaim ourselves little by little. And What I want to share with you is a process that you could look at right now so you don't have to necessarily wait to your 40s or your 50s, or if you're in your 40s and 50s and you're still feeling disempowered in your life. I want to share this process so that you can do some self-reflection. So the first thing that you want to do is think about, where have you been told you can't be who you want to be, say what you want to say, or do what you want to do? And I want you to try to go back to the earliest times in your life. Were you told that you're too loud, that you need to be quiet? Were you told that you take up too much space and you have to be humble and allow others to come forward? Think about what you were told and write those things down. And then as you're writing them down, you might go back and say, because I was told this, this is what shifted in my life. Or this is how I now act. Or this is how I now do something. So because when I was in junior high, I was told I couldn't sing. And you know what? I can't. I'm off pitch. I'm tone deaf. And so all through my life, I held, I cannot sing. So what happens when people sing around me? I close my mouth because I don't want to be off pitch. I don't want to embarrass myself. And so I've gone through life only being able to sing when I'm in the car by myself or when I'm home by myself. Now, I let somebody else's experience or many other people's experiences of me change a behavior. For me, it was singing. So that's the first step of disempowering ourselves. We let somebody else's advice, someone else's opinion of us matter, that we begin to change what we do. So as you're writing all of those things down, I want you to pick one. And once you pick one, you can say to yourself or ask yourself, if I was standing in my empowered place, if I didn't care about what this person thought, or I didn't care about how I looked, or I didn't care about what somebody might say to me, what would I choose to do? So ask yourself that question. You're going to pick where you feel disempowered, and then you're going to ask yourself that question. If I didn't care, what would I choose to do? Now, once you get clear on understanding what you would choose to do, you have some options. You get to step out or step into something that you're choosing to do. You might feel vulnerable. You might feel exposed because up until now, you let other people's opinions or what somebody else said about you or what you started to believe about yourself control you. So you're going to feel some vulnerability about stepping into what you're now choosing to do. So if I was stepping into my ability to sing, I might say, well, the first thing I want to do is try to get a singing coach, because I've never sang really except to myself. Maybe I also want to get my hearing checked. Maybe there's something there that's going on that's not allowing me to hear the different tones. Maybe I want to take the step of just singing in my house when my husband's home. And if he says, oh, dear God, I'll say, yes, aren't I terrific? But the first thing is you want to look at what are the actions that you can begin to take. And then what new belief do you have to put in place in order to take those actions? So for me, I've carried the belief I can't sing for most of my whole life. So how could I flip that on its head and step into the fact that I can sing? I may not be good at it, but I can sing. So a new belief could be, if I flip it around, I can sing and I enjoy singing. And it's time that everyone should hear my voice, right? Those are some beliefs that I can begin to take on about myself. I can also take on the belief I'm a beginner at singing. And what that does is give me grace. It gives me grace to make mistakes, to not sing on tune, to take some risks. Because when we're beginners, we allow for space to fail. Like when I was first learning how to ski, I was in the snow on the ground more than I was standing on my skis. And why did I keep at it? Because I knew I was a beginner. I never stood on these skis before. Every year at the beginning of ski season, I get on my skis and I think, what am I doing on these sticks on the top of the mountain? Like, do I remember how to ski? And I'll question my sanity. And then I will just go and do it. Oh, because I love it. But in the beginning, we don't know what we love or what we don't love. What we do know is that when we begin something, we give ourselves the space to be a beginner, the space to fail, the space to look foolish, the space to laugh at ourselves. So whatever you're empowering yourself around, I want you to have that beginner's mindset. I'm a beginner at this, so that you can co-create with yourself the space to make mistakes, to fail, to look foolish, to try again, to have fun, to have a good laugh at yourself, to ask others for advice, to be vulnerable. All of that is a beginner's mindset. And so when we begin to re-empower ourselves around things in our life or ways of being, we want to also bring on that beginner's mindset so that we can begin to give ourselves grace, take some risk, maybe laugh at ourselves, maybe fall down, but we do it again and we try it again and we try it again until we get it. So for you, when you're thinking about your life, when you're thinking about an area of your life that maybe you're not so happy with, I want you to think about, what are you doing? Who did you give your power to? Who did you make more powerful than your own belief? Or maybe it was a situation, maybe you had an experience, you go, oh dear God, I'm never going back to that experience again. And so you're making that experience dictate who you and what you're going to be. So if it's an experience that you've had, how you can clear it is go back to that experience and look at it from all angles. Look at it from what was bad about the experience, but what did you learn from the experience? What did you take away? What shifted or changed for you? What opened up for you? When you tell yourself to go through an experience and really look at the whole experience, not just the outcome, but the whole experience, most of the time you will find areas in that experience that you were empowered. And I want you to take those back. I want you to reclaim that for yourself. And in the experience where you didn't feel empowered, you're going to ask yourself, is this really important for me to feel empowered in this? I'll give you an example. So I went mountain biking years ago with my husband, and we used to ride our bikes a lot on the road. And then when mountain biking came in, he got into it. So I thought, all right, I'll try it with you so that, we could have something to do together. And I did it, and I absolutely hated it. It was terrifying for me because you're in this mud, dirt, you're hitting rocks, you're going over tree limbs, you're falling off your bike, and it was sort of like that same experience I had with skiing. The big difference was with skiing, I loved it. With mountain biking, I kept trying it. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, no, this really isn't for me. So if you've had an experience where you've decided, yeah, this wasn't for me, but here's the things I learned about it myself in it, then take that and apply it somewhere else. So don't let the whole experience keep you from doing something. You want to acknowledge what you learned from this experience, and now what can you take forward? A lot of people that have either lost their jobs, that got laid off, that were fired, that were told they weren't good to go look for something else, the first thing they do is they believe it. They believe it because the proof is in the pudding. Somebody is telling you, go away. We don't want you here anymore. But if you take the time to peel it back and to look at your whole job, you might find out, hey, I was really good at X, Y, and Z. And you know what? I wasn't so good at B and C, but those aren't my favorite things to do anyways. And this person actually did me a favor because it got me out of a job that I was just sort of 50-50 in. And now, as I get clear on what I like and what I'm good at, I can go and get my next job to support that. But here's what I see when I coach people. If they've lost their job, or they were fired, or they were told they weren't good at something, the first thing they do is they believe it all. And it sends them in a spiral. And so when they believe it all and they go down the spiral, they have no power left. They've given that power to whoever has laid them off, fired them, or told them they weren't good. To get that power back to you, you have to break it down. You have to say, okay, let me step back. Let me look at the full job. Let me see where I shined, what I loved to do, and what I didn't. And then you repackage yourself into what you want to do next based on what you love and what you're good at. And you can leave the other job behind. And here's the big aha. You have to create a new belief about yourself. And the belief is, I am good, and I'm good at these things. And anyone would be happy to have me in their organization because this is what I bring to the party. And you might have to say that day in and day out, especially when you begin to interview again, because the fear of getting laid off, of having someone fire you, feels so real that when you begin to believe you're not good enough, that's when you can't step into your own empowerment. And that's when you can't create a path forward. I hope that it really helps you to see and be able to break down a situation, a scenario, something that somebody said about you. You own the parts that you're good. You get rid of the parts that you don't believe And take it as a learning experience, not as the truth. When we take other people's opinions or our experiences as the truth, it's when we begin to get stuck in life. Because if we're taking it as the truth, we can't make movement. If we take it as, oh, this is an experience I just had. And by the way, it doesn't feel good. I'm sad, I'm angry. Like, you can step into your feelings. I'm not saying discount them. Step into them. Just don't get stuck there. When you've had a good cry, when you've had a good yell, when you've, shared whatever you needed to share with others, then it's the perfect place for you to start analyzing, how do I get my power back around this? I hope this helped you on Ask Me Anything. And if you have questions for me, please drop them in the chat and I'll speak into them the next time we meet. Take care, everyone.